In this part, I will focus on the theoretical foundations of feedback, especially the distinction between summative and formative feedback. Feedback plays a central role in classroom interaction, and understanding this distinction helps explain how teachers' responses influence student learning. Classroom interaction often follows an initiation-response feedback cycle, also known as the IRF sequence. In this cycle, the teacher initiates, the student responds, and the teacher provides feedback. However, in many classrooms, the feedback move is evaluative or summative. For example, the teacher may simply say, "Good." This type of feedback mainly assesses what has already happened rather than supporting further learning. Simple praise such as "good" can be ambiguous because it is unclear whether the teacher is praising the grammar, the content, or the effort. Wang and Waring, in 2009, argue that "very good" with falling intonation acts as a conversation killer. It functions as a teacher full stop and can shut down further student output. For praise to be effective, it should be work-specific and truthful. It should also explain exactly what the student did well. Formative feedback refers to feedback designed to help students improve future performance. According to Black and William in 1998 and Hattie in 2011, this type of feedback has a strong impact on achievement. Instead of using simple praise, teachers should use follow-up moves or pursuit questions. These include asking for clarification, reformulating to check understanding, or asking students to defend their answers. These follow-up moves extend the interaction and force students to process language more deeply, which supports language development. I now move on to error analysis and classification, focusing on the taxonomy of mistakes proposed by Edge in 1989. Error analysis explains different types of learner mistakes instead of treating all mistakes in the same way. Slips are mistakes that students can self-correct once they are pointed out. They are described as performance errors because the learner already knows the correct form, but produces it incorrectly at that moment. Errors are mistakes that students cannot correct by themselves because they lack the necessary knowledge. These are competence errors, and they usually require explanation from the teacher. Attempts refer to situations where students try to express meaning but lack the linguistic resources to form the structure correctly. Learner errors come from different sources. L. 1. Interference refers to errors that arise from the influence of the learner's first language. For example, at the phonological level, Arabic speakers may confuse the sounds F and V. At the grammatical or conceptual level, French speakers may misuse the present perfect, and Japanese speakers may struggle with articles because of different reference systems. At the lexical level, learners may use false friends, such as the Spanish word librería and the English word library. Developmental errors are part of the natural acquisition process. They are often caused by overgeneralization. A typical example is a learner saying, "Daddy goed." These errors show that learners are hypothesizing rules and reshaping their interlanguage, which is the version of the language a learner has at any stage toward mastery. From a teacher's perspective, the role is to help this reshaping process rather than simply telling students off because they are wrong. I now turn to correcting spoken English. A key issue here is the accuracy versus fluency dilemma, which concerns when and how teachers should correct learners' spoken errors. Accuracy work focuses on specific forms. In this type of activity, online correction, meaning on-the-spot correction, is generally accepted. Fluency work focuses on communication and flow. In this case, immediate correction is often viewed as intrusive. Lynch, in 1997, argues that teachers should intervene as late as possible. In fluency work, teachers can offer gentle correction. This helps students communicate better without turning the moment into a formal accuracy drill. Reformulation, also known as recasting, involves repeating the student's utterance correctly. For example, when a student says, "She said me," the teacher responds, "Oh, she told you." Recasting is unobtrusive, but students often perceive it as a conversational response to content rather than a correction of form. As a result, its uptake can be limited. One online correction technique involves paralinguistic cues, such as facial expressions or gestures. These cues indicate an error without stopping the flow significantly. Another technique is finger correction, which uses the fingers to draw attention to the problematic word or part of the sentence. Echoing is also used by repeating the error with rising intonation. For example, "Flight 309 go to Paris?" Metalanguage refers to the use of grammatical terms, such as asking "countable" to prompt the student. This technique is effective when students understand the terminology. Offline, or after the event, correction takes place after the activity. Common techniques include charts, auctions, and transcription. With charts, teachers group errors into grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation and review them afterward. Auctions use a game format where students buy correct sentences with play money. Transcription involves students recording and transcribing their own speech. Stones in 2012 suggests that self-correction through transcription leads to higher uptake than teacher correction. I now move on to feedback on written work, with particular attention to the contrast between process writing and product writing. In process writing, students go through drafting and editing. In this context, feedback should be formative because it is meant to support improvement across drafts. There is ongoing debate about whether feedback should focus mainly on form or on content, and different researchers suggest different priorities. McGarrell and Verbeam in 2007 suggest focusing on content in early drafts. This approach is intended to encourage writing fluency. In contrast, Shin in 2008 and Sugita in 2006 note that students often prefer and respond more to imperative comments on form. One common technique is the use of correction codes or symbols, such as S for spelling, WO for word order, and G for grammar. This allows students to identify and correct mistakes themselves. However, Correction codes can become an uphill battle when students do not understand the grammatical concepts or fail to pay attention to the codes. For this reason, effective use requires explicit student training. An alternative feedback method is screen capture, using software such as Jing or Camtasia to record audio-visual feedback while scrolling through the document. This allows for more nuanced explanation than marginal comments. To avoid teacher burnout and student anxiety, teachers should correct selectively. Some teachers spend 20 to 30 hours a week marking. Selective marking focuses on a limited area, such as verb tenses. This focused correction is more effective because learners see multiple examples of a single error type. I now turn to learner autonomy and peer feedback, with particular attention to self-correction and peer correction. Self-correction is widely considered more powerful than teacher correction, especially in relation to long-term acquisition, which is often referred to as uptake. Teachers can foster self-correction by using checklists. These checklists can be based on students' previous errors or on criteria agreed upon by the class. In peer correction, teachers must judge whether a student is in the right frame of mind for correction. If a student feels humiliated by peer correction, it can be highly demotivating. Peer feedback can be less threatening and more provoking than teacher feedback. Students may accept teacher feedback passively as expert commands, whereas peer feedback requires them to critically evaluate suggestions. For peer feedback to be effective, it needs structure. One way to provide this structure is through completion forms, such as I like the part, "安静你听," and I'm not sure about. Giving feedback and correcting students is a sophisticated, personal, and reflective aspect of teaching. It requires a constant balance between supporting students' confidence and providing the necessary intervention to reshape their interlanguage. Ultimately, feedback is formative in nature. Its purpose is to help students improve their language use in the future.